Hello, my name is Berlinologist, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those viewers that watched my first YouTube channel, and I've had 85 views, and I'm really pleased because the first one that I did, I had 85 views, and it was like over 9 years, so it's taken a long time to get 85 viewers to view my YouTube channel. So thanks again for all those that have taken the time to watch the latest one. I'd also like to take this opportunity to apologise for the abrupt edits in my first YouTube clip. That was because the phone it was like an alarm or a beep went off, and it was so loud that one, it threw me off, and second, the way it was edited, we had to take out maybe a second or so because to get rid of that beep. There was a mistake I said about Parkinson's, Hitler's Parkinson's. I was watching Mark Felton, and he was handing out iron crosses to the Hitler Jugend, and I noticed he was shaking hands with his right hand, and it was the left hand that was shaking. But having said that, I've seen him actually shake hands with his left hand. So there seems to be some discrepancy, but I have to take it from Mark Felton that the Parkinson's, or at least the shaking, is in the left hand, not the right. Okay. Also, the last thing I'd like to mention is the Hitler bunker. I said six films rather than 5 at the end of my YouTube clip. Here's the 6th one. This is Die letzte Stunde in Führerbunker, and it's by Christopher Schlingensief. 100 Jahre Adolf Hitler. And this is done by a director with a group of actors that I assume are like from his theatre company, and he's done his own interpretation of the last hour in the Hitler bunker, and it was really hard going watching it. It's shot in black and white. It was shot in 16 hours, and you hear a lot of shouting and screaming. You see someone that's sitting on a toilet. You see someone pulling down his trousers, sitting in a bowl of paint, and then pressing his bum cheeks on the wall, which is really bizarre. But I'm not here to criticise the director or his actors. It's just I just can't understand the interpretation, or his interpretation of Adolf Hitler in his last hour in the Führer bunker. But this is it. And this is the back of the, and if we look in there, see the inside of it. So I mean, I you know, looking at what they've done, you know, they've taken the time to actually make a film is, you know, I think it's fantastic that you can actually go and make a film, you know, with 8 actors or so, and make a DVD out of it. But I have to say that I found it hard going, and you know, other than that, I would say this is a curiosity. So that's the 6th film in the Hitler Führer bunker. This one is called Die letzte Schlacht, which is like the last push, the final push. And this film is interesting in the fact that it does focus a little bit on the Führer bunker, but then it goes outside of the Führer bunker and it focuses on just normal people having to survive the last hours of the final Berlin battle. This one is actually, I like this one very much because it actually shows you it can show Hitler from a distance. So if you can imagine being in the cellar with the wounded, and you see the nurses and doctors, and then all of a sudden Hitler appears, but you only see him from a distance, you don't see him close up, and he doesn't really talk to anyone. You get the idea of what they're trying to convey. And I think by filming it that way, you actually get another point of view. Whereas all the other Hitler Bunker movies, he's like the main attraction of the film. Whereas this is more of just the ordinary people, the nurse, a soldier, an officer, and a broadcaster. And you can actually see how they're surviving and trying to keep alive when everything is just falling apart. I think if you're in a cellar, you can sort of lose track of time. You can lose the sense of reality, because all you've got is your own self, and if you're wounded, or you've got like post-traumatic stress. I know that's something that they didn't call it then, but you can actually sense the suffering of those that were in Berlin at the time, and this one shows it very well. You also see it from the Russian point of view. They have like loudspeakers to try and get the soldiers to surrender. They're sort of pumping out this message, lay down your arms and things like that. And then when the Russians do actually meet up with the Germans in the shelters, they ask them, are there any German soldiers? And but you can see the fear in the faces of those that are in the cellars once they see the Russians turn up, because they know the dangers of what some of the Russian soldiers will do to some of the women. But this doesn't have any subtitles. If you're a German speaker, that shouldn't really matter that much. But if you're someone who's not, it might not be the film to watch if you haven't got any subtitles. So if you want to purchase this film, I recommend that you do some research first to find out that the film indeed has subtitles. That's called Die Letzte Schlacht. The next film I'm reviewing is The Downfall of Berlin, Anonyma. And you see the cover there. It's the back of the DVD. It's the inside. And this takes a different point of view. This film is about, you wouldn't see it from the title, but this is really about rape. As blunt as I have to say it, that's essentially what this film's about. This was written by a woman who was known as Anonymous, and this is a German issue of the film. And this one, as you can see, gives a better impression of what the film was about, as opposed to the English version, which you see sort of like explosions and fire and things like that. And I have to say that the fighting at the beginning of the film, the first 5 minutes, is very, very realistic. They do a fantastic job. It really, going through all these Hitler Bunker movies and then see that one, because I was going through the films one after another, you can actually see the quality of the filmmaking. They really nailed the fighting, and you really do get an impression of how frightening it really was. So this is told from a woman who wrote a diary, and she published the diary in 1959, and everybody was so outraged that she didn't want anybody to know who she was, and even after her death she was insistent that nobody would actually know who she was. And this was a woman who was very well educated. She worked in Moscow, she worked in Paris, she was in London, she was a journalist, and she wrote down all her experiences. And so she tells her story as to what it was like when the Russians turned up in Berlin. And at that point, when they came, the women knew what was going to happen. And this is it was very troubling for me to watch. It was disturbing. It's not something that you often see in a film, but it really was, the last taboo, I would say, of World War II. When the Russians came, the women were so afraid that there was a lot of suicides taking place, and the other way to actually survive was to actually find a soldier who they would then liaise with. That is to say that soldier would then protect her from all the others. So it was like it was a relationship due to the circumstances of the situation. But many Russian women were beg your pardon, German women were raped, and there was it was a Russian order. It was pretty much an order that they were to do so, and this occurred in the last 3 days after the end of the war. However, the rapes were going on before then, and Berlin, being the size that it was, the Russians had already captured lots of districts of Berlin, and as a result, they were raping the women there. So it was going on a lot longer than those 3 days after the end of the war. But it wasn't just the Russians; the Allies did it too. It's just that this taboo has been covered up, and it's only sort of, I mean, the Germans all knew it. They never said anything, they kept it very, very quiet. But to have a film made about women being raped is very troubling, but it is done very, very well. I mean, I would recommend this film, but, it's not for everyone. So this is Anonyma, for Anonymous. This is the German one, the German issue, and this is the British. So as you can see, that the covers give two different impressions of what the film really is about. This is the end of the war. This is 1946. This film was made in 1946. This is called Somewhere in Berlin, and this is told from a child's point of view. So I've got the Anonymous, which is about the women that were known as Trümmerfrauen. Trümmerfrauen means rubble women. They were made to actually clear up the rubble after the war ended. And this film is about the children, and these children were known as Kellerkinder, which means cellar children, because they're the ones that were running around all over the rubble and going into cellars and playing as you'd expect all children to behave, at a young age. But it must have been really troubling for them to have to do what they did with unexploded bombs, grenades, rifles, Panzerfausts, those anti-tank bazookas, and all sorts of other paraphernalia. And you'd think that Berlin, being a kind of a building site, you wouldn't want young children to be running around, due to health and safety. But in those days, they didn't think about it that way. And also children not having a father or mother, or having no guardians at all, clearly is troubling. But you don't get that impression when you watch this film. It's just kids having fun. But why I find this so fascinating is that you get to see Berlin as it was in 1946. There's a guy called John Entwistle from The Who, And he said something I'll never forget. He said, kids today play with Lego bricks, but when we were growing up, we were playing with the real thing. And I can see why. I mean, this film actually says it all, but it doesn't really say it in the story. It's what you see. You have to imagine, if you see Berlin as it was at that time, with, you know, with all the buildings crumbling all around you effectively, and kids just playing about, you know, there's going to be an accident, and in this film there is. So somewhere in Berlin, you see it through the eyes of a child, but the film is really about your own observation when you watch the film. So you kind of want to watch it like a documentary. This film doesn't have subtitles, so if you are wanting to see this film, you want to check, you know, go online to see if you can actually find a film that has the subtitles. So that's Irgendwo in Berlin, Somewhere in Berlin. The last film I'm going to review is Germany Year Zero by Roberto Rossellini. And this is the front cover, it's the back, and that's the inside. This is a classic. This, without a shadow of a doubt, is a brilliant film. It's dialogue driven, and they say it as they see it. This is about a family who are struggling in Berlin in 1948, where the child is effectively having to hustle. He's having to go on the black market. He's having to actually try and look for coal, or look for food, look for money, anything so that the family can survive. His father is sick. His brother has come back from the war, but he doesn't want to sign with the police, which is, in fact, if you were to go to Berlin today, you'd have to do. You'd have to sign with the police. You have to let the police know that you're in Berlin. And they had to do it at that time. Electricity, gas, water, these are all the amenities that we take for granted. But in those days and in those times, it was precarious. It was if you couldn't afford it, they would turn off the electricity, and the ration cards that they had wasn't enough to keep the family. And you can see how the child is made to do things and almost taught to be an adult when the child really needs to be a child. My observations, or the observations that I've had from watching this film, is how clear the roads are. Clearly they wanted to clear the roads in order for the transport and for the trams to function. And during the war, the bombs where they landed didn't discriminate, you know, they just landed anywhere. So I was always fascinated at how clear the roads were. And clearly that was a priority, to get the roads up, to repair the roads as best they can in order for the city to try and function. The other thing is the exploitation of the child, or children as a whole, where adults would use their intellect to talk to children in such a way to con them. You know, if they had to do something on the black market, the adults would use their intellect and be able to con the child in such a way that I found it actually disturbing, even of a film of 1948. There was even suggestions of paedophilia. I'm not kidding. This is a film 1948. I found this quite distressing in parts, especially when there is a scene where the adult is talking to the child and making suggestions as to what the child should do. And if you were to see this film, you'll understand what I mean by that. I don't want to spoil this anymore, because this film is a classic. It's absolutely superb. In fact, I'll say that all the films are very good. All the ones that I've got, apart from the Die letzte Stunde of the Führerbunker, this one here. All these films are great, but this one, Germany Year Zero, is exceptionally good. So I would definitely recommend that you see that one. Okay, that pretty much concludes my reviews, and I thank you once again for watching my first attempt at talking into a camera after 9 years, and then having to review these films as well. I hope you enjoy it. Take care.